Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, well hello my friends, welcome to my October monthly wrap-up. So if you're new here, hello, welcome, hi, glad to have you. The way that I do my monthly wrap-ups is I go over a little bit of stats, which is, for the nerds, we love it. I have asked if people still wanted the stats to be in these videos, and I didn't get anybody saying no, but I also didn't have a ton of people saying yes. But again, also not a lot of people said no, so there we go. And I do the stats for myself anyway, so we'll share those. But after I do that, I talk about my top 5 reads of the month. In my monthly wrap-up, I don't do the whole, I don't go over every book I've read, because as you'll see, I read a shit ton, which you probably know. That's probably why you're here. You probably enjoy all the recs that I'm able to give you, and I'm happy to do that. But I read high volume. So what I do is I do talk about every book that I read. They are all in a playlist right up here, which is my weekly wrap-ups. So every Sunday I put out a video that is everything I read that week. Sometimes it's 7 books and sometimes it's 20. It just depends. It depends how it goes. But yeah, it's usually still an hour-long video no matter how many books that it is. I can't seem to get it shorter than that. But yeah, but when I do my monthly wrap-ups, I like to be very positive because it's always a fun time. So I don't talk about my least favorites. You'll have to watch the monthly wrap-ups to see that. So yeah, let's go ahead without further ado and dive in. I like these ones not to be too long because again, I will have already talked about these books ad nauseum, but we'll see how it goes. I can't always contain myself, but there won't be any spoilers in this video for the books that I talk about. I'll keep that very like that. But in my weekly wrap-ups, sometimes I go into a bit more detail because I know people are really trying to decide if they want to read the books or not, and they want more of those. But in this one, we'll keep it just more my personal, why I liked it, right? Okay, so I have my little bullet journal here, which has my stuff in it, so I'll be looking at that, but I will scoot over so I have room to put the graphic. I always forget to do that, and then when I'm putting it, I have to make it super small. So there we go, we're leaving room. The stats for this month. I read 45 books, which was 13,922 pages. 45 is a little more than average. I have been sitting at about 40 books, 40 to 50 books this whole year is basically what I've been doing, which I'm more than happy, plenty happy with myself. The formats of this books, which was very interesting this month. It really, really was. I had 14 ebooks, 9 audiobooks, and 19 physical books. And then there was 14 arcs. Now I knew there was going to be a lot of arcs. I did also read a couple November arcs in this month, but as you will have seen with my October TBR, there was, I think, 22 new releases, and I didn't even have arcs for all of them, right? Which was bonkers. So that's the most arcs I've read all year. So that's crazy. And if you don't know, that's advanced reader copy. I know sometimes people don't know what I mean when I say that, but that's when I get a book early so that I can review it for you guys and hopefully convince you to read it if I liked it, or steer away from it if I didn't. That's how that works. The ratings of these books were, I had 4 6-star books. Now, 3 of those were rereads, so we do have 1 new 6-star book, but I still count them in this. So there was 4 6-star books, 8 5-star books, 12 4.5-star books, 13 4-star books, 3 3.5 stars, 2 3 stars, 2 2.5 stars, and there was 1 DNF. Now, it's very interesting. I know I'm pointing this out, but something that is really strange about my ratings this month is that normally I don't have a lot of 4.5-star books, right? I don't usually do the half-star ratings too often. I'm usually able to put it in one or the other. But the thing is, because I read so many arcs, there were quite a few books that I gave 4.5 to, but then, I round them up to 5 on Goodreads because I am usually nicer to advanced reads of books than I would be if they've been out for 2 years. And so there was quite a few of those 4.5-star reads that were arcs that I didn't want to give them a 5-star book or a 5-star rating, but they also weren't where I would put out a 4-star. So anyway, that's just a little behind the scenes thing, but you usually notice in last month, I had only like 7 4.5 stars. That one was still pretty high too. I had lots of arcs. But yeah, like in a previous month, like for 4.5 star, I only have 1 because I usually do fit it in a 5 or a 4. But anyway, moving along. The subgenres of this category, of the subgenre of romances that I read was 13 contemporary, 11 paranormal, which no surprise there since at the beginning of the month we had the monster romance readathon, so lots of paranormal there. 6 historicals, 5 fantasy, 5 dark romance, 2 fan fictions, and 3 erotic romances. I also didn't figure out what my top tropes were this month, but I remember, because I didn't fully finish my journal. I thought I was ready to go with this video, but if I take the time to do it, then it'll be later than I want, so we're just going with it. But I know that it was still forced proximity, age gap, and like virgin were still like the top 3, which have been for the past several months. Those are tropes I consistently read. So there's not a surprise with there. It's always age gap and forced proximity are in my tops because they're in a lot of romance. So there's that. Okay, so yeah, that is all the nerdy stat sides of things. I'm really happy with this month. A couple other notable things that happened that like aren't fully related to that. Again, there was the Monster Romance Readathon. I hosted that with a few booktube friends. Let me show you in here. Or the Monster Mash Readathon is what it was. Sorry. Here was my pretty bingo board for that. I got a little artistic. I shudder at it because it isn't my best work, but you know, this is for me and I'm proud of myself. Then I started offering annotated books a la carte this month. That was a big new scary thing that I tried to do, and I'm really proud of myself how it's going. So that's a new offering I hope to offer at least monthly, and it will always get offered to my patrons first. So you can always follow me on Patreon and be on the free tier is what they're calling it now. Instead of calling it a follower, they call it like the free tier. And I do post updates that anyone can see. And then when I will have annotated books available a la carte, that's where it will get posted first. I post it there 15 to 30 minutes before I post it anywhere else. Also updates of once you're even on the $3 tier, which is what I call the tip jar, I have like usually monthly reading sprints that are just for patrons and hangouts and stuff like that. I don't think we did one in October because I got behind, but usually there's those. So anyway, those are some fun things. And then this will be happening in October, but I'm filming this on the 30th, and there's still today and tomorrow left. Tonight that I'm filming this, and it should be available for you to watch on my channel if you're watching this the day it goes up, I'll be interviewing Claire Kingsley. And I haven't had an author interview since, I believe, if I look back, I think it was March was the last time that I did, because things have just been hectic, and also I just didn't have the energy to like plan that type of stuff. But since we're going into winter and it's going to be, you know, possibly really dreary and, you know, isolated, I may try to get more of those set up. We'll see. We'll see. This one I'm very excited to do. I love Claire Kingsley's stories, and I'm very honored that I get to interview her because she hasn't done much publicity in the last few years. So, or whatever. So, okay. Why did I close this? Now we're going to get to my top 5 books of the month. So, and I'm going through these kind of like just in the order that I read them, but 4 of them are 5-star books, and 1 of them was the new 6-star book. So here we go. So Brutalize Me by Michelle Hurd ended up being a favorite of the month. I was just really surprised by this book. This is a part of her, I think it's called Ruthless Royals. I honestly couldn't tell you, but this one is book 3 in the series, and I've just kind of been plodding along with the series. I know that like the last couple books in this are one of my friend and patrons, like some of her favorites. Hi Daniela. And so I've just been plodding along because I'm not a person who likes to skip around, and I do know most of the characters in this world because a lot of her series have like spun off of each other. So I've just been plodding along, and I happened to read this book while I was staying with my sister earlier this month. That was a bad visit, not because of my family, but because of unexpected car trouble that just threw my whole world out of whack for a little bit there. but I ended up just being like, oh, I'm going to start a book. Well, the kids were doing some stuff, and then I couldn't put this book down. So yeah, I wasn't the most attentive aunt that day. But this one is a arranged marriage, but there's a few other things going on in this. So the heroine, her and her brother were adopted by a mafia family when they were young. They had been in like an orphanage, and they'd been adopted by this mafia couple, and her brother is older than her, and he's been at the Monarch Academy, which is the like mafia school or whatever, and it has just been this dutiful daughter and has been being trained to be a wife and a mother by her adopted mother and everything. And when her brother gets married, his book is the first book in the series, and he's away on his honeymoon, so he's just left. She finds out that her adoptive father is pushing her into a marriage. Now, this is a very interesting situation because her brother already has someone picked for her. His best friend, actually. So his best friend, he already has this. Now, he hasn't told anyone yet. It's just an agreement between these two. And his friend is up for it. He promises to take care of her and love her. And well, I don't think he like promises to love her, but he will love her. And like, yeah, so when her brother is gone, you know, she doesn't know about the marriage her brother set up yet, because again, he hasn't told anybody. But her adoptive father tries to force her into something, and she's a very timid, subdued heroine. She really is. She's very shy, and she does like do what she's told, but she like knows this isn't right, and this man is right away very mean to her, very cruel, and she just does not like want this. And on one of their dates, he like hurts her and threatens her, and she can't help herself. She like, I think she like hits him and runs out, or she gets out and she calls her brother's friend, because remember, her brother's on her honeymoon, not knowing that like he's supposed to be her fiance anyway. So he comes and gets her and takes her to Monarch Academy, and then the politics of it got to get all figured out. And of course her brother does come back and it's like, what the fuck was my adopted dad trying to do behind my back, right? Like, what is going on? So there's a bunch of that. But anyway, so she does end up being engaged and is going to marry her brother's best friend. So yeah, not to like spoil any of that, but he is so good to her. I just loved how he cared for her, and that she is a duty to him, but he also like cherishes her. And also, I loved that her brother picked a friend that he knew would do that. This wasn't just his brother, like, you know, doing a favor for a friend or whatever. Like, he genuinely loves his little sister and wanted her to be with someone who would care for her. And again, if not, like, love her, provide for her, and not do any of these things. Because she's always wanted to be a wife and mother. And anyway, her brother had picked someone great for her. Like, I love reading arranged marriages anyway. Like, I love that. And the fact that her brother wasn't just, like, careless. He wasn't just doing it for an alliance. He wanted his sister to be taken care of because of, like, well, I mean, he just loves her, but also because of, like, the childhood they had and how uncertain it was and how scared she was all the time. He wants her to have security and not be afraid. And so I just love that. I loved it. I mean, it's pretty cheesy in some aspects too. Like Michelle Hurd, she does put on the cheese for some of the romance, but like this heroine deserved to be treated like a queen, and our hero is doing that. So I loved it. So yeah, that one was a 5-star book. I think it was like a 3 on the Spy scale. And yeah, brother's best friend, mafia, arranged marriage. It was great. And the next 5-star was another mafia, which is funny. I felt like I didn't read a lot of mafia this month, but 2 of the ones I did read were new favorites. So there we go. And this, of course, was Silent Lies by Neva Altaj. This is book 8 in her Perfectly Imperfect series, and I just keep loving them, okay? I do. Each one is a new scenario, new troubles, and I love it, okay? So this hero, he has high-frequency deafness from an explosion that killed his parents, I think his parents and one of his sisters. So it was only him and one of his sisters left. And yeah, so he is mostly deaf. He can only hear like certain things. And so he has a compound. He has all his people with him. I think he is the Serbian mafia is what he is. I know it was a weird one that I'm not used to. But our heroine, she's the sister of the heroine from Fractured Souls. So if you had read that one, that sister had been kidnapped and forced into sex slavery and then was rescued by her hero. Anyway, and so she was the twin sister of this heroine. And she feels very guilty because she blames herself for her sister being kidnapped. But she is this very spunky, like, go-getter of a heroine. And so when her mafia boss tells her she's going to do this arranged marriage, she doesn't really put up much of a fight. She's like, I mean, it's not like I really have a choice anyway. Her brother would get her out of it if she wanted, but she's like, you know what? I'm happy to do my duty. What do you want? And so she has a gift for languages. So he is like, you need to learn Serbian. Again, I think it's Serbian. If it's not, either way, whatever the language is, she learns it. And she's supposed to spy on his family. So like, it's an arranged marriage and it's supposed to be a, a truce or whatever, but she's still supposed to spy. But she comes into his life and is just like, number one, he already has kind of a pretty chaotic, like, family and compound, even though it is like run very well. Like his father's ex-wife, his dead father's ex-wife, like, runs the place and is called like Mama, basically. And yeah, so she just goes in and she is wacky, because she wears these like hideous outfits and is just always trying to keep him off balance. But yeah, their relationship came together so well, and I loved how his high frequency deafness was handled, and just how his people have like adapted his home to work for him, because why wouldn't you? He's the boss. They're going to do what they have to do so that he's able to be that. And I just loved how all of his people just worked with it. So much so that it takes the heroine a long time to figure out that he is mostly deaf. And because he doesn't tell her, he doesn't want to share his weakness. Sorry. Lips getting a little dry. So I just enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, this was a 5-star read for me. This one, honestly, had so many funny moments in it too, which in the earlier books in the series, there were some lighter moments. And then the last two were a bit heavier than ones in the beginning of the series. Like, they had dealt with sex trafficking, and another one dealt with like this woman who was in an abusive marriage. So those were a lot heavier topics. And yes, it's mafia. They're supposed to be, but Neva has a way of finding little moments of levity without it like disrespecting the story. She was able to do that in like Broken Whispers, which I love so much, and those. So Silent Lies definitely had a bit of a return to that. And so it lightened me as well, because this couple, they're playing a chess game with each other, and I was here for it. I was here for it. So yeah, that one was obviously 5-star too. Okay, then we have another new release that I read. I mean, all of these are new releases, I will tell you that. Brutalize Me is the only one that's older. It was a good month for this. So there was King of Greed by Anna Wong. Now, I love this gorgeous cover, but my ring light may not. So I don't know. We'll just hold it anyway. You guys know what book it is. So this is book 3 in the Kings of Sin. This one is a marriage in trouble, and boy, do I love those. Yeah, I love marriage in trouble, especially when it's done this way. So this book begins with Dominic missing their 10th anniversary vacation. He forgot about it. He's so focused on his job, being a billionaire and all that jazz. And so our heroine has had enough. They love each other very much, but they've been married for 10 years, been together for 11, and he has slowly spent less and less time with her and done less and less with them together, and she's just done with it. And so she asked for a divorce, because she's like, it hurts more that you keep pulling away from me and I have less and less of you than if you were cheating on me and I had a reason to leave you. This is even worse. And so she asked for a divorce, and this, of course, as it should, wakes our hero up, and he's like, what have I done? I have done all of this. I have built this. I have become a billionaire for this woman. She is his everything. And he has somehow lost that focus with getting the next million, the next billion in, And so, but none of that means anything to him. Anything at all if he can't have her. So I know some people, like, the ratings for this on Goodreads, y'all, I don't understand them. I just don't. This book is like below a 4, and I don't get it. I mean, granted, like, because her books have such huge reach right now, there are so many people who've rated this book, right? You can tell the difference between like an indie author who's made it big and someone who's like just indie just by, how many ratings are on stuff. But this was a much like, I don't know, this series has parts of it that are so much softer than like her other one. And I was saying this with my friends when we were talking about this book. I am really impressed with how she's been able to like whittle her books down more, because one of my complaints in the Twisted series, which I really did enjoy all of those, I gave them 4 and 5 stars. I really like them, but they ended up getting very long by the end, right? Like Twisted Hate, Twisted Lies, those books ended up getting very long. They had a lot of repetitive scenes in them. They had stuff like really drawn out. And so one of the things I can tell that has improved so much with Anna is the fact that having, I think, more editors and having more eyes on her book ahead of time has really improved her writing, in my opinion, because it's one of the differences that I can see. I'm not someone who really like critiques writing, and I'm not talking about sentence structure or any of that. I just feel like she uses less words to tell the story, and it makes it even more powerful because you're not like going around and round and round with everything. But yeah, I love this book. I don't want to spoil anything for you. There was a specific part of this that I like gasped and like almost burst into tears. And then there were just, this is a man, like, he is out to prove that he's not too far gone to this, that he's, willing to change. She just has to give him one more chance. But the thing is, he's used him up, So we'll see what he's going to do. But we know the Kings of Sin aren't going to let their ladies go. So yeah, this was a 5-star read for me. And I also was very impressed. This book is going to show up in a video I'm going to film soon, which I won't spoil for you, but it really fits in it. For a lot of the complaints I've had lately about the overuse of spice or it being too much, not in this book. This book is done perfectly. And I'll tell you why, again, without to spoil it. This is a couple that's been together 10 years. There is there's nothing missing in their sexual life, okay? But these two have to find each other again. And they're not going to do that by jumping into bed with each other right away. Because again, that's not the problem. They know all those buttons and all those levers to push to make that a good experience. But the heart has to be won over again. And so by the time there is the first like intimate scene in here, there's just, you can just feel their hearts like laid bare. And Anna really, really, it seems, lives by the, nomer of like sex in a romance shouldn't just be like potpourri thrown on it. Like, it should have a purpose and it should mean something. And I feel like she did that with this one. So there isn't just a ton of like needing to see every wild and crazy sexy thing these two do to make it worth someone's time. Like, she uses it sparingly and uses it well. So this one was really only a 2.5 on the spice scale, and I think it was perfect. It wasn't missing on the romance, and it wasn't missing on the chemistry or the intensity. And that's what I want more authors to be doing, is you don't have to sacrifice chemistry and burn for the spice, for the hot heat that just, burns everyone's mouths. If you can have a simmering low boil that just keeps a reader gasping and turning the pages to see will they, won't they, that's the talent that I want again. And I know authors possess it. I know they do. Don't give in to the quick thrills so easily. I mean, do it if that's what your book is. Again, because I reach for those books sometimes too. But to me, this book, and honestly this series, is really a good example of what I'm hoping more authors catch onto, because it just made it all beautiful. There was no skimming a sex scene. There was no skipping anything. I wanted to read it all because it just felt so emotional between them. So yeah, enough gushing about that. I love King of Greed. Oh, so good. All right, still 2 more to go. And next up, we have my new 6-star book, which I still don't have a copy of yet, because I just read it last Monday, and bills were due, so we gotta wait. But the new release of Contempt by Sam Mariano, which is the newest book in the, what's it called? Coastal Elite series. This we've been highly anticipating. Well, I have anyway. And this is Landon and Parker's story. So I told this in my Patreon vlog, as well as I think in my weekly wrap up, that like I had finished a bunch of stuff on Sunday. I got a bunch of stuff out of the way because I knew this book was dropping, and I cleared my schedule so that all I had to do was read this book on Monday, which honestly, for me, working from home, doing this life as full time, I don't always have the time to just put everything aside and read. Honestly, I'm just as busy in a lot of ways as when I like work 9 to 5 in an office, because there's so many little things you have to do. But I was like, nope, we are clearing the slate because I don't want any interruptions. I want to experience this all in one go. And boy, did I. So I don't want to spoil anything about this story. I have spoilers in the weekly wrap up. It's in just the one from the other day. And I literally talk about it for 20 minutes. So I'm really not going to go into it in this one. But I want to point out kind of the main things that I loved in this one. One, Landon is not Dare. Sam Moreno's not trying to make him be Dare. As soon as you open Contempt and read the author's note at the beginning, you'll know she meant this to feel totally different. She doesn't try to write any of her characters like someone else. He really is like a rich boy who's being bad, who's acting out, and who has a toy that he wants to play with, and he wants to get her at any cost. So, you know, there's nothing mentally wrong with it. I mean, there is, because he's being a bully and doing that. But, like, there's nothing mentally wrong with him or any of that. Like, he is a broken boy who just wants this girl, okay? Number 2, I thought Parker was very smart. This is another book that, like, again, the reviews have just slayed it, but I don't know. Sam Moreno doesn't always work for people. She never has, because she makes decisions that not all authors would make, right? But I thought Parker was very smart. I loved how much she would stick up for her friend. Don't want to get into that here, but the way she would stick up for her friend, the way that she was playing this game with Landon, and she didn't fully want to admit it. Like, there's a bit of unreliable narration that comes from her, because there's a bit of a game that she's playing too. You know, she's not, I mean, it's not that she isn't innocent. It's not that she deserves to have him force things on her, because this does have non-con, dub-con going on. But there's revelations we have later into it that, again, there is a certain amount where she's playing a little bit of a game with him, you know? Yeah, I also loved how much the parents are involved, right? These two, they're not step siblings yet. Their parents are like engaged, but they're not together yet. They're living together, so they're all under one roof. And if you read Undertow, which you should read before you read Contempt, you don't have to read the first one. And this is from Sam. For me, you should read them all. You should. But I didn't love the first one, so I'm not like recommending it. But you should read Undertow, and then you can read this one. And the parents, their book is Undertow. And I was very interested to see how Landon was going to be able to get around the parents, because they are keeping an eye on him and watching him. And the way he's able to fool them sometimes and trick them sometimes. He has to get pretty sneaky to get time alone with Parker and to be able to fuck with her. And fuck her. Both of those. So yeah. And then my favorite is specifically the way the third act conflict is usurped, which again, I go into spoilers in the weekly wrap up, so if you want to know what I'm talking about, you can. But I was for sure something was going to happen and we were going to have a third act breakup. Because it's not, I mean, Sam has definitely done third act breakups before. I mean, Untouchable has one. It's actually like a second act breakup. The whole breakup part is the third act. Anyway, but she does something different. And I gasped out loud with the choice that the hero makes. Because I thought he was going this way. I was like, we're going this way. And then he went over here. And I was like, whoa. So, yeah. But I loved it. I mean, Sam Moreno's my favorite. I was someone who was pretty disappointed in Even If It Hurts. I know for so many people that's their favorite. I didn't care for it. But I liked Undertow. And I liked this one so much. And I can't wait for Sophie's Surrender to be released, and then to see what else she does. And it could be any time. She said it could be any time, so I'm keeping my eyes out. So yeah, that was a 6-star read for me. This was a 4.5 on the spice scale. Check all the trigger warnings for this, but I love it. And Sam Moreno is one of my top like romance queens. So there we go. And then the last book that I want to mention, I actually just read the other day. And I was going to buy this book as soon as it came out, because it comes out November 3rd. So it comes out on Friday. But I had like commented on the author's post, and then she DM'd me and said, can I send you an ARC? And I was like, yes, immediately. So Hoarded by the Dragon is the book. So this is part of the Bathhouse series, or the Fated Monster Romances, whatever the series is called. It has like couple different names. But this is another full-length book. I think this is like the 4th full-length one. I don't know. But either way, this one starts with a thief who, her name is Katerina, and she's supposed to sneak into this dragon's lair, which is just his mansion. She is a witch, and she has some magic where she's able to find the weaknesses in wards and like get through them. And she's supposed to steal something. And so she gets in there. And it turns out that the dragon inside is super horny and super angry because he's in the middle of his heat. And there is this woman who's come in. And so he's pumping out all these pheromones because he's in the middle of a heat. And the heroine is getting really turned on by it. And he's like, I'm going to call the police on you. And like, I'm really angry and blah, blah, blah. Or whatever their version of police is. It has a different name, the council or something like that. And she says, wait. Let's make a deal. And he's like, I don't want to make a deal with you. You're a thief. And she's like, but I think you do. I think your dicks want to make a deal with me because guess what? Dragon, 2 cocks. Okay? Two cocks in the down below area. And so she makes a deal. She's like, I'll let you work out your heat on me if you let me keep this thing that I need to steal. And he's like, are you sure? Because better be sure. Because once you say yes, I'm going to. And she's like, yep, I'm sure. So she's there for like all night long while he just goes crazy on her, pumps her full of himself multiple times. It's hot. Okay. It's pretty hot. And then literally the next day she's visiting her friend and her friend is like, you're pregnant. And she's like, what? I literally haven't been with anyone. I mean, I was last night, but and she's like, no, you're pregnant. And it's a dragon. So she's a little shocked by this, that it hasn't even been like 12 hours and she has a little dragon bun in there. And so she's like, whoa. And her friend's like, I'll help you if, you know, you don't want it. But immediately the heroine was like, she's always wanted to be a mom. She's never had a great home growing up, but she wants to give that to a kid. And then also her friend like tells her too, she's like, dragons are very rare. Like they don't have a lot of kin. So, you know, this could be very like special too. So she's like, no, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to tell him about it, but I'm going to take a beat. Like he's not going to want to see me right away this morning after everything. So she's like, okay. So then a week later, and our heroine is having some serious pregnancy symptoms. And that is kind of like a theme through this book that I really liked, is kind of these magical symptoms, being able to kind of like ask, like you're able to see a very like, you know, exaggerated version of what like some people might feel. And she is shivering so bad. She can't get warm. She's so cold. And when she goes to see the hero, the dragon Koval, I think his name is Koval, Kovel. I think that's it. And she says, I'm pregnant. And he's like, that's not possible. She's like, it is. And he's like, no, it's not possible because a dragon can only impregnate their mate. And I've already had a mate. So it can't be you. But it is. She hasn't been with anyone else. And it's a dragon in there. And well, what happens is that because she's pregnant with a reptile, the baby is taking all of her heat. Like it needs lots of heat. And so they discover that Koval needs to warm her. So basically by dragon cuddles is how she gets warm. So that is the setup of this story. He of course like moves her in and basically they start planning a future for them and the baby. But he makes it clear that like this will be like parents of convenience, right? Because he's like, I already had a mate. She died. You can't be my mate. Blah, blah, blah. We've heard this song before. So he's very resistant to that. And so, yeah, this becomes a slow burn then. And I can't tell you how much I love that. Because, again, with how I've been feeling about spice, and, like, the spice in this, when we get it, is very hot, okay? Like, there's knots, there's 2 dicks, there's double penetration, both DPV and DVP, or P, both ways, basically. 2 in 2 and 2 in 1. There we go. That stuff. There we go. And like there's super hot stuff in this book, but it's balanced so well because since it's a one-night stand, we get a hot scene in the beginning, which is just about the physical, you know, just about the act of it. And then because like now they're living together and eventually like she does get very like hot and attracted to him, but she's still like, no, you can't see to those needs for me because you've told me that will never be more than this. And she's like, I'm not okay with that. So it now is like, we're waiting for him to like accept it. And like his dragon knows that like she is his mate, but he's not ready to accept that he deserves another mate. So this was wonderful. I honestly like teared up a few times reading it because like I love accidental pregnancy. I loved him being so, there's definitely grumpy sunshine too. I loved the unique, I shouldn't, but like I love the unique pregnancy symptoms she had being pregnant with a dragon. I thought they were very well thought out and just made sense. Like when you thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, that would make sense, you know? And yeah, we get peeks at other stories she's going to tell. Like she sets up a marriage of convenience in here. And we also get to see previous couples too, because there's a previous monster that is kind of like Koval in some aspects. So he gives some advice to them and stuff like that. So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap up this monthly wrap up here, because I got more videos to film today. But anyway, those are my 5 favorites. If you want to know again about the other books I read this month, check this out. If you want to buy any of the books I just talked about, I have links to their Amazon links down below. I get a small commission if you buy using my link. And yeah, that's everything from me today. Let me know what your favorite read of October was, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.